Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be going over the unique item that's seen a lot of changes since the original version, which is the Deathless Visage. It's definitely a unique that is very specific to one build, which is Bone Spear. And it does have some interesting changes that could make it more interesting for your Bone Spear build. And one of those, of course, is the chance for the Bone Spear projectiles to cast twice and some other things. It does actually compete sort of with the Harlequin Crest for this particular build at this point because of the additional things that they've added to it. Personally, I think I prefer Bone Spirit over Bone Spear, but to each his own. Will you quit trying to eat my buttons? I'll fight you. I'm watching you. So it has some pretty interesting effects. As you can see, I have a greater FX on the maximum resource, which has brought it up to 30, which is no masterworking, which is really amazing. I actually found two of these with a greater FX on the maximum resource. I wanted to show you one without it, but so be it. Obviously, maximum resource is a really big thing when it comes to scaling damage with this particular build, because of course you have your Ossified Essence passive, which gives you, of course, your damage bump based on your increase in essence. So the more essence you have, the more damage you deal. This one is 0.5% times increased damage for each point of essence you have above 50 upon cast, which is of course going to give you a nice little bump. And on top of that, you also have the Serration aspect, which also gives you a bump for your damage reduction, and so forth and so on. And it's just very nice in general to have, obviously, more essence when you're dealing with these skills. On top of this, it also gives you 2,962 armor, which is certainly not bad for the Necromancer, because he does have a little bit of an issue building armor. On top of this, we also have the up to a 32.5% chance to cast Bone Spears twice, which is going to make it a lot more flexible in terms of your weapons, because you won't necessarily need as much on your weapons to hit that double chance, which can open up maybe other options, like potentially using, I don't know, like a Doombringer or some other interesting item in your other main hand, or maybe you just want to use the Grandfather that doesn't have a chance to cast double Bone Spears. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can potentially do with this item. On top of this, we also have +4, up to +4 to Bone Spear, which of course can be greater affix as well and get even more plus to skills. And then we have the actual meat potatoes of the effect. Now, when you normally fire Bone Spear, it just kind of fires in a straight line, and of course it bounces back. And when it bounces back, it does additional projectiles. And as long as it crits, which if you do have that passive, and I don't know if I actually grabbed that or not. The one that Bone Spear breaks into 3 shards when it is destroyed, dealing additional damage. And then, of course, we also get the aspect that I'm missing, which is the splintering aspect. That one also enhances Bone Spear even more. Of course, if you're going to be doing a Bone Spear build, you're probably going to be using the splintering aspect. But with this one in particular, though, when you put the Deathless Visage on, you're going to get an additional effect of echoes that follow behind the Bone Spear, and it's going to dish out like little explosions, and these explosions are going to dish out more damage. Now, they used to not really do all that much damage, and that was just simply because, well, they didn't scale in any way, shape, or form. But they do scale now, and they scale based off of your critical strike damage. So, for instance, if I throw on my Grandfather, which of course gives me large amounts of critical strike damage, you'll notice that I should be going up. Of course I don't go up. Why would it go up? It's just silly. It never wants to work the way that I say it works. Even though we get 100% critical strike damage bonus with Grandfather. But in general, with this particular item, the more critical strike damage you have, obviously the higher this is going to scale. And as a Bone Spear Necromancer, you tend to build a lot of critical strike damage. That is basically how the build works. In fact, you're going to have an excessively large amount, which means that this multiplier should be going up an excessively large amount as well. So not only are you getting essentially a free ability to cast twice, and if you got a nice greater affix on that cast twice, and then you also masterworked it, you could very easily get close to 100%, I think. And obviously not 100%, but close enough to it where you would be getting a double almost every single time, which would be pretty darn nice. Obviously the maximum resource helps out a lot there too. But then you also get the additional explosions which happen, and I can't remember how many it does. It used to do a lot more, but now it doesn't do as many. I think it's like one every certain number of feet, so the further you are away from the monster, the more of the explosions you get, as you can see. So they basically just leave like a trail of explosions, which of course can help you with AoE damage. Not that the Bone Spear really needs all that much AoE damage help, though, which is kind of weird in my opinion, because I feel like Bone Spear is pretty good at AoE damage already. And with all the little splinters and everything coming back, it tends to do pretty decent AoE damage, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just silly. We also have the added effect here. Rathma is endless. He was the first ancient and will remain at the end. He is the master of the great cycle of being. When death comes for him, why should he fear it? Van Vontus, acolyte of Rathma. Now, the Deathless Visage does come from a specific place, if you want to get your hands on it, especially if you're trying to farm like a really good version of it, like you want to get like those greater affix rolls and whatnot. So it does come from Echo of Varshan, and it comes from Lord Zir. And of course, you can also get this while you're farming for your Ring of the Sacrilegious if you want one of those. The Tormented version is going to have a much better chance of dropping you multiple of these, and obviously, as you can see, with greater affixes on them. And I think if you did find like a really nice one of these with like at least 3. The armor's not really that important, but with these 3 greater affixes, one on the maximum resource, one on the Bone Spear projectiles cast twice, and one on the Bone Spear, I do think this might actually be best in slot for a Bone Spear Necromancer at that point, because that would free up your hands for a better weapon, because you would get your double chance off of your weapon slot, which is very difficult for some classes to do. And then you would obviously be free to use other weapons, legendary powers and whatnot, maybe even a grandfather or other potential items that you could, obviously get more effect out of with your Bone Spear. They added a unique effect. While it's not like super duper amazing, if you are scaling the critical strike damage, it is going to add a nice little additional damage pump. The only thing that I would recommend with this, with Bone Spear, is that for some reason or another with this, because obviously when you're very close to the target, like for instance like this, you may not even get like the explosion like actually going off like in the right place. So it does take a little bit of kind of like distance, like appropriate distance, to make sure that the explosion is going off like in the right area. As you can see there, like it actually does a pretty decent amount of damage even without me scaling it properly. That was a nice 1.8 million, like almost guaranteed there every single time, which is certainly not terrible. And if I could potentially get, say, like an overpower, I don't know, like an overpower might be even higher. Of course, it also depends on how much resource I currently have at that particular time too, because my Bone Spears are doing damage based on resource. I don't know if this one actually does damage based on resource, whether it counts as a bone skill or not. It may not. Ooh, that was a nice little overpower pump there. Not bad. As you can see, it's just an additional damage that you can add to your Bone Spear. And the helmet itself is now very well crafted for the Bone Spear Necromancer. So it definitely is something that you might want to take a look at. If you did find like a perfect 4 greater affix version of this with a decent unique effect, I would probably use this on my Necromancer's head over top of the Shaco. And the real reason is because number one, it has the double projectiles twice. That's like the main meat and potatoes, because Harlequin Crest has maximum resource and so does Deathless Visage. Harlequin Crest also has the cooldown reduction, and this one has a pretty nice, it also has plus to skills, so plus 4 ranks of skills, and you can also get plus 4 ranks to Bone Spear here as well. So like they kind of match up in that way, and they both have armor. The only thing that changes out obviously is the cooldown reduction versus the projectiles cast twice, and I think he was doing the pee-pee dance. Don't do the pee-pee dance. Don't pee-pee dance. Do not do the pee-pee dance. He said, do the pee-pee dance. And they're pretty comparable in terms of output. Obviously, you're missing out on the damage reduction, though. That's like one of the really big things there. And the damage reduction might be crucial for your specific survivability. So, I guess we'll see. Let me know what you guys think of the new Deathless Visage. Do you think it's a powerful item? Do you think it could be useful for the Bone Spear Necromancer? Do you think it's useless for the Bone Spear Necromancer? I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining me for these fun little videos, even when Mr. Dusty Bones tries to tinkle on me and eat my buttons. And as always, keep watching.